suggestions and rules for our Sangha. Sangha is a gathering where we discuss spiritual wisdom, and that's something, an auspicious thing in itself. So thank you for joining. Nicole and everyone, can you just say something, good morning or Hare Krishna or whatever, so that I know everyone can speak
Yeah,
up?
good morning.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Yeah, I know it's early for you, and it's very nice that
Fine.
you taken this initiative. So what we'll do today is, I was thinking, I was being a bit ambitious that we'll do chapter one and the prologue, but it seems that the prologue has enough meat in it to, or rather wisdom in it, to give us a good nourishment for beginning this journey of the soul through the book, Simon Haas's book, Yoga and the Dark Night of the Soul. Um, so to get the conversation going, what I'll do is I'll speak about a few reflections, the ones which I've noted. I've noted 11 points from the prologue, but if I speak all the 11 points, I think it'll probably take more than 20 minutes. I just want this to be a discussion. So with every point, we'll also open it up and see where the conversation goes. So on the first page, he writes in the third paragraph, as a young teen, I wondered why so many of us live in a state of restlessness, or he says, many of us live in a state of restless dissatisfaction with life. I hoped I might find a mentor, an example to follow. But wherever I looked, I saw people struggling with the same basic challenges: jealousy, anger, frustration, boredom, dissatisfaction. I was no exception, of course. A witness to the difficulties experienced by loved ones, I questioned Western culture's response to crisis and where our perspectives might be failing us. So, the reason I chose this paragraph was it sets the tone for understanding what success really looks like for us. And then, the idea behind success is, outwardly, we might be satisfied with our education or our jobs, and the skills and abilities that we are developing, the facilities that we get, the money that we earn, or many other things that make our life content and satisfied, in that sense that we have the resources we need. We have a nice bed to sleep on, we have good food on the table, we have a good roof on over our heads. But something inside is still empty, and we question, is there something beyond? What is that something which we consider success? Could be a point of conversation, and that leads to dissatisfaction, anger, frustration, jealousy. But we're not able to pinpoint what that really is. Why aren't we satisfied even if we have more than 99.9% of the people in our life? Why are we jealous of so many people who might be, we might think that they are above us, but there are so many people who don't have what we have, even close to what we have. Why are we frustrated, uh, even though we know that we have all our limbs in order, our mind works fine, we've got a good education, we have good mentors in our day-to-day life, in our worldly duties? Why are we bored? Why are we looking at the next distraction to give us that dopamine high? So it's an interesting question to open up. Like, what does success look like for you? So if you have your answers, it'll be good to hear. Gayatri, you want to go first?
Sure, sir. Uh, I mean, what I feel is, as humans, we have this tendency to seek for something more, right? For example, I'm someone who is walking to school every day, and then I see one of my other friends riding a bicycle. I would have this want to have a bicycle. Once I have a bicycle and I see someone going on a motorbike, I would want a motorbike. And then from there I would want a car, and from a car I'd want a bigger car. So I think there's always a constant need to have what the others have, and I think that's what causes this. I won't call it an inner turmoil, but you're just not happy because you want something more. You want something bigger, you want something better. and there is no stop to it because there are n number of things ahead in life that are bigger and better, and you would just want it. So I think success for everyone would be different. For someone who's having a tough life, I guess having 3 meals per day, having a shelter, having a roof on their head, it's just a happy life. But for someone who's already doing well in life, who's already achieving a lot in life, for them success would be defined differently. I mean, this is just a thought. I could be wrong as well, but
Great.
yeah.
Thanks. I think this is a great start point for understanding many aspects of success, and even opinions that world holds about success. Media gives us a certain impression of success. Parents give us a certain disposition that do this, become a doctor, lawyer, engineer. Our social circle, our social media influencers, they all point us towards a certain kind of success. And of course, traditions as well, set us up to feel that this is what it means to be successful. So, Nicole and Celia, you might have a different point of view. Feel free to share. Like, what does this question mean to you? Are you successful? What is it? What does success look like for you in your lives?
You want to say something? I don't know. For me, success doesn't have anything to do with material things. Actually, materialism for me is all the opposite. That it's what brings jealousy, it's what brings boredom, because we always want something that we feel like something is missing. I think it's something that it is part of the human condition. And we hope that we can find that missing part in the material stuff, because it's easier to get than actually to, I don't know, watch inside yourself and work on yourself in something that is not material. So I think success is like when you achieve, like, I mean, it's not achieved because it's a constant work in progress, but it's working constantly on yourself and growing, like, your spirituality and the way you see things and the way you approach the world and the people, and always be a better version of yourself when doing this.
Fantastic. Anyone else wants to add something? We can also move forward because there's lots to cover. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, you can always circle back, whenever you want to this point. So the second point in this paragraph was, I questioned Western culture's response to crisis and then where our perspectives might be failing us. So the author, Simon Haas, is actually an interesting person. He grew up in the UK, but he moved to India when he was in his, in his childhood, because his parents were highly influenced by the Bhakti Yoga traditions, and he moved to Vrindavan. He joined a Gurukul, and also, eventually served a guru here for more than 10, 12 years. So when he was 16, he came back to sort of Vrindavan again, and spent many years here. Then eventually went to University of Cambridge and things like that. And now he's written 2 books. He's working on his Cambridge PhD, which is, I think, concluded, presented, and defended. And he's often travels to India. So it's a very interesting personality to stay in connect with online or even in person. So he talks about this Western culture and response of crisis. So whenever there's a crisis, or even death for that matter, in a family or some loved one, is that tendency to get over it. Just it's like shove it under the rug and don't really, get too bogged down by it. Grief is considered, or despair is considered, an emotion which for the weak. You're not supposed to like display that in public. Whereas in our Indian tradition, yoga or a problem or a situation which even leads to a crisis or earthquakes or life quakes, as we call it, can be actually viewed philosophically as leading to a question, which is, what is the lesson I should take away from this crisis? That's a very different viewpoint, where pain can lead to purpose and problems are essentially a tool to help you figure out a plan to progress. So this is something which I wanted to also open up and have a discussion with you all. What do you think of this idea of life quakes and different areas these life quakes can happen? And what do you think of dealing with a crisis? What are the paradigms that you have used in your life to deal with problems and issues? Do you shove it under the rug? Do you want to tell yourself, let it go, just go grab a drink and forget everything for a while, go party? And, what is your reaction to a crisis? And you can be honest, or you can talk about in the third person that I know someone who behaved like this in a crisis. So maybe Celia, you want to take a shot?
Yes, I wanted to say that I agree that Western culture regarding to problems or grieving is a culture of hiding, not about exposing the problems and speaking up about them, but to hiding just because of what you said, that is considered as maybe being weak or not productive, because in the end, pain is not productive at all. Whereas here in India, well, we still have to discover, but for sure we can really believe that when there is a problem or when there is a life quake, as it is written here, it is used to learn and to take out a lesson. And I think the second way of approaching it is much more interesting, because in the end, life quakes, you cannot control them and they are going to happen. If you have a high position work, if you don't have work at all, if you're old, if you're young. So taking a lesson from every life quake that happens to you helps you overcome the next one. Hiding every life quakes that you have only makes it worse for when the next one happens. And the fact that it happens is something that you cannot change or control.
Excellent. I think that's a wonderful summary. Yeah, so we'll kind of go over some of these slides now. I mean, in everyone's life, there will be many life quakes. It's predicted 2 to 5 major issues. Could be in relationships, it could be career, finance, or even some acts of violence, or even war. But there's another type, which is, of course, the physical, mental health issues. And finally, when you are dishonored, or you lose a job, or your identity is questioned, it's definitely another moment. So no one is, in a way, immune to life quakes. Arjun, in the Gita, was definitely the best warrior, was regarded as very successful, was very wise, humble, knowledgeable. He was righteous and very sensitive to others. He wanted to uphold dharma, be the best, kind of promoter of justice. Yet he was not immune to facing life quakes in his life. He realized that he was surrounded by people who were full of animosity, his cousins and his uncles and many others who had conspired against his brothers to kill them repeatedly, or destroy their careers, or even usurp what was rightfully theirs, their kingdom. So his family was eventually exiled. This is a very short brief of the Mahabharata. In this crisis, when his main dharma was evoked, that okay, now he needs to be this warrior to defend his rights. But more than his rights, his view was that, I have to uphold dharma, which is what is good for the world. But seeing his uncle, seeing his cousins, seeing the harm that this war would bring, he really questioned his identity. Should he act as a warrior who needs to uphold dharma, or be compassionate and run away from battle because he doesn't want to suffer the crisis, suffer the evil that he thinks he will incur by killing his own people? So I think that was a very interesting way to look at it. So Arjuna represents our soul, and who is going through a life trek. And the art of life is to learn how to respond to that with progressiveness. He had to learn how to tame pain and problems into purpose and progression. So the Gita is essentially about this. How does he the Gita teaches us how to make daily life a yoga practice. So it's beyond the mat. And this line is in page 2 of Simon Haas's book. So the aim of the Gita is not just to give you information on what this conversation is and what he's trying to teach you, but it's also nudging you to apply what that teachings have as a message to transform you as a person. I think by introspection and by trusting his guide, Krishna, he develops that spiritual vision. He's not looking at problems anymore by the end of the Gita from where he had started with his smaller view of his own personal identity and his relationships to his cousins and his uncles and his teachers, but more from a higher spiritual plane of dharma. And that's what Krishna nudged him to do. So we have to unpack what dharma really means. And many of these discussions, we'll talk about Satchit, Anand, and Tapa, which are truth, purity, non-violence, and discipline. And that's something we'll gain existential awakening by studying these 4 topics as we progress in the book. There's also a kind of another book Simon Haas wrote called The Book of Dharma, which elaborates on these 4 principles in a beautiful way, and we'll discuss those also. So mastery of these yoga teachings, in that same paragraph, he says, awakens our innate power, allowing us to inhabit a state of wholeness even though your body may be broken, a state of richness even though you may have no earthly possessions, a state of imperturbable peace and quietude even though the world around you may go up in flames. So I think it's a lost knowledge source which we are now wetting our feet into. So this is a very sublime and as well as a very simple philosophy, and it gives us a lot of optimism to look at life's problems and deal with them with a framework which is a universal principle-centered framework. So yeah, thank you for participating in this journey with all of us. We all want to be wholesome, like this paragraph talked about. We all want to be prosperous, not just in terms of money, but understand the source of wealth beyond money and resources and comforts that we are looking for. What really gives us that wholeness when we talk about inner wealth? What is peace? How do you define that for yourself? All of this is discussed in the Gita in a lot of detail. So, okay, time is up, but let's just quickly do a final sort of reflection exercise from folks who haven't spoken or even someone who's spoken. So, Vivan, you want to go first? You want to say something?
Sure, Prabhu. My main reflection would be that how you can turn, pain into purpose and problems into progression. That was, I think, my main reflection. And I also took some points from,
Prologue?
how different people define their success.
Got it. And did you read the prologue or you didn't get time to?
No, Prabhu. Yesterday night I went to sleep, but today I'll read it.
No problem. That'll be good. We've just done 2 pages so far. So we
Yes,
thought we'd
yes.
do the whole of the prologue and a bit of the chapter 1, but I think this is going to be a slow journey, but I think hopefully a short journey. So, Gayatri, anything from the rest of the prologue which you think was useful?
Oh, I think Nicole and Vivan just did summarize it a while ago. But another thing that I found really interesting was his journey itself, like the whole description of how he did the parikrama and, him going through all that, and also keeping up with those practices that are definitely tough. I think that also teaches us how to become resilient in life, that problems do come in and go, and it's just a phase. You should never lose hope at the end of the day. You
Yeah.
just have to keep going and also learn in that process.
Yeah, it's wonderful, this whole act of the parikrama. And if you go to Govardhan, which is almost 21 kilometers around a hill, it's also in Vraja, near Vrindavan. People do the Dandavat parikrama, right, 21 kilometers. So it takes like 15, 16 days for someone who's an athlete level person to do. And I know I have friends who are bankers and top consultants in New York and other places who come here every year and do this. So they might have a very successful life in the material sense, but they also have a very spiritual sankalpa the word that he used in this this prologue, and that's really a wonderful point that you pointed out in terms of the Dandavat Parikrama, or the full prostrate. Danda means like a stick which falls flat on the floor, right? So our body, which is like, we think our body is everything, and you just make it like, no, you're not the body. You just keep doing a physical act. So you're like an athlete who really pushes yourself to dissociate with your body and your mental weaknesses, and challenges yourself to listen to your Paramatma, which is your inner guide, which is the soul of the universe. Simon Haas beautifully points out, is what we really need to reach. Okay, Gayatri, you want to say something?
Yeah, another word that I did notice throughout was humility. So
Yeah.
I think another aspect of like yoga itself, or all these ancient practices that we have, is no matter how big of a person you become, it's very important for one to stay humble, to stay down to earth.
Yes,
And I think that's
down to earth, okay? Just flat.
right.
So that's where the word comes from. Really. So fantastic. No, I think humility is a whole new, chapter to unravel, and this just touches upon it, and then the book unravels it in a beautiful way. Anything from Nicole, Celia, to wrap it up? We have 1 minute. Anything else from the prologue that you felt was very interesting? So parikrama was one thing. Finding a teacher could be another, or any other aspect.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think
No.
Nicole.
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead.
we agree on what you said, and we say a little bit the same that we said before. Yeah, basically, that it's important to take into consideration pain, understand where it comes from, and use it for a purpose.
Great. Preeti, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was thinking about this term which you mentioned, restless dissatisfaction. So in our normal life also, we don't need a very big reason to become dissatisfied. Even if the reason is small, we get agitated by these life quicks. And Arjuna, because being from India, we keep hearing about Bhagavad Gita, and we take it very superficially in the beginning, but we when I used to think about Arjun, and I used to just think that he's a normal person, he's asking some questions, and then Krishna is just answering through Bhagavad Gita. But when we read books like this, when we go deep into the study, then we understand that Arjuna is actually going through so much. And then the good thing is that we are able to relate to his journey, because it's been explained so well by Simon Haas and others. And I felt that if we associate like this with like-minded people who have the same taste of hearing and doing service, because all of us here are actually hearing to Arjun, like he's explaining it to us. I mean, Arjun Seth, and even Arjun, who's trying to, relate to us the problems that he's going through, and we are hearing. And the service that we are giving is listening to these sessions, and listening to each other is also a service. So I feel that if we have these 2 points, that we want to hear and we want to serve, then we are able to understand this text even much more better.
Fantastic. I think that really wraps up the mood for our Sangha. So see you tomorrow. Bye. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.